Hi guys, Brand here and welcome to another commentary video. Today we're going to be covering the Xenomorph because we haven't done a Xenomorph video on this channel in quite some time, and I feel like we need to get back into it because if you don't know my credentials, I wrote the guide on the character, I held a top stat, 3 to 5 give or take at any given point on the Xenomorph for quite some time, and I really have fallen in love with the character since they've been released, but I do think that there's something new and really interesting that we can... Hold on a minute. Hi guys, Brain here, and welcome to the actual video now that I've had a little Willemorph burst out of my chest there. Well, it is true that we have not actually made a Xenomorph video on this channel in quite some time. As a surprise, I was scrolling through Twitter the other day, and I came upon probably the most complete and awesome Xenomorph rework concept that I have seen ever since the character has come out. Despite the fact that I love the Xenomorph and I think they're great the way they are, a lot of people have lamented a lot of things about the character's design, both from the survivor and the killer perspective. And every rework I've seen to the character kind of like hurts one side or the other a little bit too much. And by one side or the other, I not only mean the killer and the survivor players, but also us who like enjoy the Xenomorph the way they are and like what behavior made, and also try to give something to those people that didn't like the design. Usually it comes at the major expense of one or the other, like they're completely changing it into completely new characters, so any aspect of current Xeno you like, it's gone, or they're doing something where they're keeping it so like streamlined and simple and close to the original design that it's like it's not really a rework at all. However, this design that we're going to be talking about today, this potential rework, actually captures all the things that are fun about current Xenomorph while adding the things I feel like people are missing from Xenomorph's current kit. However, before we get too carried away, let's make sure we make credit where credit's due. This concept was not made by me. It was made by an excellent individual called Smug over on Twitter at S_MUG_mug_. They are a fellow Xenomorph main. I see a lot of their excellent and fun clips, kind of like our tail attack compilations, posted on Twitter all the time. And they are the ones that came up with this concept with some help and inspiration taken from Pixel Bush's concept. So thank you to both of them for their excellent work in creating this wonderful concept. So yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and look into it. So starting off here, we have the perfect organism, supposedly responding to a distress signal. The Nostromo's crew landed on LV-426. What they found there became one of humanity's greatest terrors. The Xenomorph begins the trial with 2 overmorph tokens and the ability to enter crawler mode and control stations. So already we're seeing something a little bit new and different here with overmorph tokens, formerly just an add-on. But first off, we're going to cover crawler mode and the way it has changed in this concept versus standard DBD. Hold the secondary power button to enter or exit crawler mode. So now you can flick on and off crawler mode. In Dead by Daylight, currently crawler mode is just kind of something that happens unless you're intentionally barreling into flame turrets, which you absolutely should not be doing. You have no agency over when or when not you are in crawler mode, and you will see why this matters here in a second. The Xenomorph is undetectable, can slowly crawl over pallets. We're kind of adding almost a manual scamper back to the game, which may scare you, but trust me, hold on here, hold on, hold your horses, because this later on we cover in the numbers is not actually that fast of a scamper and is more comparable to Vecna's flyover pallets that he can do, which is totally fine. That's fine on that character. In addition to this, they can vault windows faster. They move at 4-4, which is kind of one of the first things I will kind of point out as being kind of I kind of get it if we're going to be trying to make the Xenomorph more fair to face and kind of incentivize switching between modes. I don't think the character needs to be 110 speed. For reference, that 110 speed is what we give to Huntress. But the reason we give 110 to Huntress is because she can hit people cross map. It's the same thing we give to Deathslinger, but Deathslinger can also hit people 18 meters away. Xenomorph's tail attack is currently only 4.8 meters and is not changed in this concept, so I don't think they necessarily need to be 110. But moving on. And obviously, like we were talking about, they have access to the tail strike. It's not called the tail attack in this version of the power. It's kind of a minor change, but it is there. And then probably the big one that I've seen is that the Xenomorph cannot perform basic attacks in crawler mode. This is something that's been kind of clamored for, mostly by survivors, mostly by survivor mains that hate the zoning situation that the Xenomorph creates. The problem with adding this to the character is that in most concepts, I've seen this as just like a net nerf to the character with no compensation, which kind of makes it to where you just especially with how finicky the collision in Dead by Daylight is. The tail attack, even if you aim directly at the survivor, there's so many things that can go wrong, even if you aimed correctly. So just not having the ability to take the safe option of the M1 there is really, really, really overly punishing to the character. But if you direct your eyes back to the top of this concept, at least for the crawler mode section, you can just switch back and forth between the two modes. So you can just become 115 and M1. And it gives a lot more of a tell to the survivors when that's coming, because one of the biggest complaints of the Xenomorph, in addition to the zoning, is that the tail attack windup is so quick and so fast that it's really hard to react to. But obviously, if the Xenomorph just full on stands up, like in the middle of chase, that's a big tell, and you should be looking to get out of the way of an M1 and not a tail attack. And it will not be covered in this little diagram slideshow thing that I have up here, but the Smug did say that the switch between crawler mode and the standard mode is going to be really quick, so you will be able to still kind of use those safe M1s when you need to, but it is going to have more of a tell to it, which is honestly a good thing for the health of the character in the game. But yeah, the point being is that most people just wanted to take away the ability to M1 in crawler mode, but just like did not give anything back to the character, which was just miserable and lame. But this handles that, which is why I think it's a great start to an excellent rework. All right, so now we're going to be moving on to the control stations. The Xenomorph can enter and exit one of the several control stations scattered around the map. To enter the tunnels, allowing the Xenomorph to detect survivors inside the tunnels and briefly while exiting. So this is the same. This is one-to-one with current Xenomorph, with the 16 meters of sound and footstep reading, 12 meters of killer instinct, that sort of thing. Next to each control station now lies 2 overmorph eggs. And while the Xenomorph is inside a tunnel, hold the secondary button with the control station to enter Facehugger mode. So essentially, the control stations and the tunnels function one-to-one with current Xenomorph. However, they will be adding kind of a twins function to the character, where you will become dormant as the Xenomorph in a control station and be able to switch to your Victor, that being the Facehugger. So let's go ahead and talk about this Victor morph here. When a Facehugger mode is activated, the Xenomorph goes into dormant mode and gains control of a Facehugger for a short period, consuming an overmorph token and rendering the selected overmorph unusable. Facehuggers move quickly across the floor and are able to deliver a pounce tag, so very Victor code. When a survivor is pounced by a Facehugger, they enter a grapple and are incapacitated and impregnated, which is just a weird thing to say and have in a video game, but that's what happens. Facehuggers can be removed by the attached survivor at the cost of entering an injury state or deep wounds, or by another survivor with no injuries. So one of the things that I made a long time ago was a concept of how we could implement Facehuggers into the Xenomorph's base kit power, because that is kind of one of the biggest things that people are missing from the Xenomorph's current kit. And I understand why, because if you actually watch the movies, like you actually watch Alien Romulus that just came out, you know, that is a big part of the movie, is the, you know, the infection, the gestation period, the chest burst, all that stuff. So it's actually a pretty big part of every single one of their movies. And while the tail attack and the control stations, the tunnels very much are emblematic of the character, that is also the another big aspect of the character that is missing. And I've always had worries about this, because it's one of those things where, like, by definition, the Xenomorph is OP in its own universe. That's like why the Xenomorphs are a problem, is because they're turbo parasitic, but they're also almost impossible to deal with. So you can't one-to-one make an OP character in a versus game, you know, because then what's the point? Like, everybody would just play Xenomorph and nobody wouldn't play Survivor if the killer was just too strong. So but this kind of adds it in a way that's not too crazy and too oppressive, and we will continue to get into. As it's pointed out here, you kind of enter like a Victor-esque mode where you go and you pounce people down. And there's kind of like a weird fun thing that's, I think, is a cool part of like Wesker and Nemesis's kit, where there is a teamwork aspect to this, that if you do this by yourself, where you try to remove the Facehugger by yourself, you take an injury state or deep wounds, if you're already injured. But if you actually play with your team, you don't get an injury at all, which is something that is kind of the case with current Xenomorph, with the turret setups, is that if you're playing with the team, it helps facing the killer. So it's kind of preserving that kind of like team spirit of facing the killer that is going to be changed, spoilers, as we continue to go here. But I do appreciate the encouragement of altruism here. While impregnated, a survivor's gestation points slowly builds if they have a facehugger attached. So you got to get this thing off ASAP. Not having a facehugger attached will slowly decay gestation points down to the bottom of their current gestation stage after a short moment. So this is not one of those things where, in my concept, I had it to where facehuggers were kind of like a permanent thing, and it kind of put the match on a very, very firm timer. One of the things that people hate in Dead by Daylight, especially while playing killer, is bully squads that try to like kind of like hold you hostage and just like not playing the game, not finishing the gens, and just like messing around. But putting the game on a firm timer with the infection from the facehuggers was my idea. But in this concept, you can actually get rid of your gestation points, which is probably more fair. My plan was kind of harsh, but my plan was more focused on more accuracy and not like gameplay balance. So this definitely fits more of a gameplay balance perspective. The more gestation stages a survivor has, the more hindered they are before they can be killed. Now, this is something you got to be careful about. This is one of the things that I wouldn't say is like a negative, but it's something that, like I said, you should be very cautious about, because if you make this hindered too much, then it's going to be miserable and people aren't going to play them. Especially if you have situations where, like, you know, you decide to tunnel somebody down with the facehuggers, is that person will just kind of get slowed down and essentially prevent him from playing. So you got to be careful about stuff like that. And if you are reading this right, the upcoming part is before they can be killed. So if you get enough gestation points, yeah, you get a chest bursted, which is pretty cool. They did clarify in Twitter replies that this is more like Sadako, where you will still have to come up and down them in order to perform this like special mori. But it's essentially like getting fully tormented or fully condemned on Sadako, where you have to go find them, down them, and then initiate the chest burster, which realistically would not be the worst task in the world, considering the fact that the Xenomorph has so much free info in their tunnels. So it's not actually as bad as it sounds. Each gestation stage rewards the Xenomorph with an overmorph token, up to a maximum depending on the remaining overmorphs in the trial. So by hitting your little Victor morph, by hitting the facehuggers, it gives you the access to enter more overmorphs. And now this is something that I wish I had asked to clarify before making this, but it does say remaining overmorphs in the trial. So I'm wondering if it's kind of like Wesker with the first aids, or Nemesis with the vaccines, except in a negative towards your aspect, because it sounds like the way they phrase this, that you could potentially run out of overmorph eggs in the trial, and then you would just be like down that power. And I think if that's the way that this is, the way, we're basing it off the phrasing here. Characters in the game that can run out of their power, typically that's like kind of pretty archaic thing that lends itself to like the lesser fun killers in the game, like Myers, like Freddy. Even Oni, who can theoretically like quote unquote run out of his power, he actually can't, because blood will continue to spawn even if he doesn't get an injury on people. It's just like it's basically like pity blood. So I feel like asterisk, good idea, but like if you're insinuating that you will eventually just run out of overmorph eggs, let's make sure we have like pity eggs. That way, like as you're learning the character, you could at the very least have some use of the power instead of just shutting down entirely. Overall, this kind of is based on what kind of numbers end up happening with this hindered stage situation. They do cover some numbers later, but it does make sense, because realistically, it is very clear there's an incentive to get rid of these things. And unless there's a lot with like new players that like kits get really complicated really quickly, and they don't exactly know what they should do against a lot of the killers. Right? I feel like having a big thing on your face, to me, like a facehugger wrapped around your head, would be enough to go, maybe I should get this thing off my freaking head. But like, new players are new players, right? I'm assuming that from a perspective of somebody who has thousands of hours. But if you get hit with that hindered, it'll definitely be like, oh, this thing's actively slowing me down, I need to get this off. So that's good. But you also need to balance it in the sense that like it's not like I said, you can just like can repeatedly just face like this one guy over and over and over and make him so miserable and not really able to play the game. You don't want to kind of create that like that that tunnel down pig head pop strat. You don't want to create that with the Xenomorph. So we just got to be careful about that. Moving on to something really exciting, we now have motion trackers. So from control station, survivors can pick up motion trackers, which will be sporadically whenever the Xenomorph or Facehugger is nearby. Motion trackers are destroyed when survivors lose a health state and are regenerated from control stations with loss. Yep, you heard that right. So one of the biggest gripes and biggest things that you're upset about while playing the Xenomorph, that being learning how to deal with turrets and being frustrated at the turrets, and even if you don't mind the gameplay aspect of dealing with the turrets, the kind of like the noise pollution of beep, 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 and being frustrated with that's gone. They have done away with flame turrets. That is no longer part of the dealio here, which is wild. It's very, very crazy, because that's like currently the way they balance the character, is the fact that, like, yeah, you have access to this like really good crawler mode, but you may lose it if you don't deal with turrets accurately. But now the flame turrets have been replaced with motion trackers, which function the same as the motion sensors that are already in the flame turrets, except they also track the facehuggers that'll be introduced with this kit and work the same ways that you can find them on people and destroy them. I feel like one of the things that frustrates people about playing Xeno, though, is the lack of stealth that you have. So this retains something that people don't like about the characters, the fact that, like, you can't really stealth up on people fairly consistently as long as they're using the flame turrets, because for 41 meters the flame turrets track you. So undetectable doesn't matter as much, oblivious doesn't matter as much. It's not useless, but it's not really helpful. It's not like consistently a good pick, which is, you know, not emblematic of the character, which is their whole thing, is like lurking around the shadows and popping up on people. So this does retain that. I wish that with this they would have like made it very clear that these motion trackers, because they're just trackers, they're not like the full turrets, are not as potent as the motion sensors. They will probably have a much lesser range, but they decided to keep this the same. And I think, unfortunately, I feel like this is one of those things that people do gripe about the character a lot, and I wish that had been addressed, but it is seemingly staying the same, this rework. And moving on to some numbers with this. So as I pointed out earlier, the time to crawl over pallet is 2 full seconds. So it's not like just the Chucky scamper where he just slides under and just M1s you, right? Like he has to take a little bit, the Xenomorph has to take a little bit to get up and over the pallet. So it's more like a Vecna fly kind of situation, which is far more fair and will definitely still be incredibly helpful in like longer loops. Like think about the snowplow on Ormond. If somebody's running the long side of the snowplow, if you vault over that, and even though it takes 2 seconds, you're going to be able, with the tail attack especially, to catch up and get the hit before the next vault over the pallet, right? But if you're one of those goobers that's like at a path pallet where it's just like 2 rocks and you're trying to vault over the pallet, it's not going to help you too much. So it's kind of like a tool you have to use correctly, or else it just actually hurts you more than helps you. Windup for the tail strike has actually been buffed by 0.1 seconds, which I find interesting because of the fact that like the 0.4 second windup is like what upsets a lot of people about the character, is that is so hard to react to. But you got to keep in mind that in this version of the power, they are 110, and you don't really have the free zoning aspect, because if the Xenomorph wants to M1 you, they have to stand up. Which would take at least a second, so you would have a full second to react. So yeah, that's balanced by that, so I actually don't mind that too much. Time to charge with the Facehugger mode is 2 seconds, so when you're in the tunnels waiting to enter your Xenomorph mode, time to enter Facehugger mode is 1 second. The time to charge for the pounce is 0.75 seconds, which is actually funny, because that's actually kind of like faster than Victor's base pounce, which is 0.85. So the facehuggers are faster than Victor in terms of pounce, just barely, but that makes sense because Victor is like the whole power of the twins, where the Overmorph is just like a supplementary power. So like Victor is far more intense and effective as the part of the kit that they are than the facehuggers are, so it's fine that they're slightly better. So this answers my question from earlier, that there is a maximum number of Overmorphs, being 14. There could be a maximum of 14 on the map because there's 7 control stations, each have 2. This may imply that they, through gaining tokens, that they can regenerate. And if that's the case, that does solve my issue that I had earlier. That like, hey, if you're just bad at the power, you may just run out of part of your kit, which sucks, you know. But this implies that you can regenerate them by having the tokens, which will spawn those back up, and you can only have up to 14. So hopefully that's what that means. And to remove a Facehugger is 12 seconds and 8 seconds if helped by another survivor. So this is pretty long. 12 seconds is a long time. Like, that's a long time to just be sitting there just doing nothing like that. Like, if the Xenomorph is around and catches wind that you are doing that, 12 seconds is a long time, which I guess would, you know, because they put here as well that 8 seconds if helped by another survivor, which is far quicker. Still fairly long, but far quicker. It's definitely not something you're going to be able to just like do mid chase for sure. So if the Xenomorph shows up and interrupts you, you're gonna have to keep that thing on, which is kind of like what I was warning about earlier, is like, you got to be careful about potentially creating that like intentional like pig tunnel down head pop strat. The 12 seconds is a lot, and there will definitely be players that will capitalize on the fact that like tracking and interrupting people from getting their facehuggers off. So it's just something we got to be careful about. The good thing, though, is in terms of gestation points, which is one you're rewarded onto a survivor every single time you facehug them, you can only apply one every 60 seconds, so they can only get one every minute. So even if you had the intention to try and mow somebody down fairly quickly with the gestation points, you would have to wait at least a minute between them each time, which kind of encourages you spreading gestation around to multiple players instead of just going after one person, which does err itself to trying to avoid that pig head pop tunnel down strat. Keep in mind, gens and DBD are 90 seconds each, at least in terms of this current patch. So that's enough time for them to be able to feasibly, you know, interact with the game, get their facehugger off, and keep playing. But if they dilly-dally too much, you can just get facehugged again. So let's see. Gestation stage 1. So this is, they have 1 point of gestation. Survivors are broken if injured, which is incredibly strong. Lingers for 10 seconds after the facehugger has been removed. Broken, well, injured is really, really strong. that is really, really good. That would make Xenomorph kind of like very anti-healy in terms of like their base kit, kind of along lines of like Plague or Legion. Like that is wow. Broken if injured. That's really good. That's really, really good. I'm kind of hazarding, kind of leaning on the side of like maybe it's a little too good. Maybe mangled and hemorrhage or something, or just mangled would be enough, because broken's pretty crazy. Like you just can't heal. I don't know, because then again, you have a big facehugger on your head. You're supposed to be like, by the movie standards, by the lore standards, you're supposed to be like pretty much just incapacitated. Like you are not supposed to be able to do things until that thing is off. So I guess just intentionally getting rid of their ability to heal at all makes a little bit more sense, but that's still really good from a gameplay perspective. Like that's really, really strong. That's really, really strong. And the second gestation stage is that survivors are hindered by 7%. Keep in mind, for 7% hindered, that's not even as much as forced hesitation. So forced hesitation, I believe, is 20%. This isn't even equivalent to running forced hesitation on a killer and having another survivor nearby to take advantage of that. So this number actually isn't that high, and it isn't that intense. And this hindered is like still good, trust me. Like it's very, very good. Like Wesker's, when you're fully infected with the Ouroboros, for example, is 4%. So this is almost double that. So you definitely see when you are max infection in a game against a Wesker, it definitely affects your chases very negatively. So having that would definitely be good. But at this point, if you're at gestation stage 2, by the rules of this concept, that means that for over a minute you have not gotten your facehugger off. And you have not allowed the gestation points to die back down. So that's kind of like on you at that point, right? And then obviously gestation state 3 is the kind of like the condemn Mori that Sadako has as a concept. And fortunately, they do nerf the motion tracker detection distance to only 32 meters. So it's the range of a normal tear radius. But I would argue it could be even lower than that. You can make it like 24 meters. You can make it like a modern abuse on a normal killer tear radius, because the whole point of the Xenomorph that a lot of people don't like from the killer player perspective is that they don't have much stealth to their kit, or at least consistent good stealth to their kit because of the motion trackers. So having those not be able to detect you as far would be nice. So, all right, let's get into the add-ons now. So Drinking Bird, which is kind of not a great add-on right now, especially for other add-ons in its own class. Currently, it just increases the Killer Instinct. In this rework version, it increases any duration of Killer Instinct given by the perfect organism for 4 seconds. So it kind of does something vaguely similar to what it does now, but now it's any Killer Instinct given period. So it's slightly better. And that keeps the spirit of the original intact, though. Secreted Resin increases the hindered penalty for your gestation stage 2 by 2% for brown. That's pretty good, especially if you're trying to form a whole playstyle around it. Having an extra 2%, like hindered is one of the really strong status effects in the game, up there with like incapacitated. So just to just to have the 2% on top of that is pretty wild. Let's see. Synthetic Blood decreases the Facehugger's pounce charge time by 10%. So this is essentially Toy Sword for Victor. This person must really like twins. Smugglers really enjoy twins because we've essentially just added a Victor game mechanic to the Xenomorph. But honestly, it's kind of the closest thing we have, and behavior doesn't like really going to places that are like brand new with a lot of killer powers, because obviously that's tremendously difficult. So actually having code for something that's very similar already is fairly realistic for a power, so that actually makes sense. Now, Cereal Rations reveals the aura of any survivor with the Facehugger attached for 4 seconds after exiting a control station. This Cereal Rations like is really good as a brown add-on right now. It's just kind of a noob trap. But what it does right now is it tracks the flame turrets while you're inside the tunnels, which obviously are not a thing in this mode. I don't know, because like I was gonna say like maybe it should still track the motion trackers, but now the motion trackers are mobile and the survivors could just carry them around kind of like EMPs. They're not like pinpoint setups like they are currently. It just feels like this might be the brown add-on that you wouldn't use a lot, because like if a survivor has a Facehugger on, right? Like if we return our brains back to the concept, they are incapacitated and something else, right? Yeah, they're incapacitated. Yeah, they're incapacitated and impregnated, which is just like the gestation period thing. Yeah, they're incapacitated. So yeah, you can't do much while incapacitated anyway. So odds are, once you get facehugged, you're either going to immediately be looking for a teammate to get that off, or taking it off yourself, right? So revealing the auras of somebody, I don't imagine this is going to have like that Victor gameplay of people intentionally running around with it on. You know, like it doesn't seem like that would be something they would want to do. So I don't know how much value this would get, but maybe I'm not saying something. You can tell me down in the comments below. Dog Cadaver and 3 reference, I see you. At least the theatrical cut. This increases pallet vaulting speed by 10%. That's a yellow. That's really good. But keep in mind, this is only for the pallet vaulting speed, so it's not for both. So it's not like that crazy. This would get really oppressive, because you gotta be careful. Because like I said, right now at 2 seconds, vaulting over a pallet is fine. It's more like Vecna with Fly. But the closer you get to Scamper Chucky, that's when we start entering bad design. So it would be something I'd have to play around with to make sure it's not too much on that other end. Fire Axe, this increases the amount of starting overmorph tokens by 1. So you would have more to start off with there. So keep in mind, you only have a maximum of 14 overmorphs on the map, but this would allow you to get more facehuggers out on the map earlier, because you would have one more. Ashes Innards kind of does something similar to what it does in the base game, except it does this to the motion trackers instead, where it takes the time to regenerate by 20 seconds. This is like one of those things where like, you know, this is just a concept. This is cool, and I would almost like want to have the motion trackers, if they're not going to be nerfed in terms like heavily in terms of their distance, because 32 meters is still normal tear radius. It doesn't really allow for that stealth kind of gameplay. maybe we just have the motion trackers take longer than the normal turrets to get back, and you have to be careful about grabbing them too early and use them a little bit more resourcefully. But this add-on definitely helps with that, I will say. Charred Flesh. Increased window vaulting speed while in crawler mode by 10%. This is something that I like a lot, because obviously one of my favorite Xenomorph add-ons is Self-Destruct Bolt, which is you vault 30% faster in crawler mode. There isn't really like an add-on tree for that. It's just like Self-Destruct Bolt is kind of just like out there doing its own thing by itself. So there's no stronger or weaker versions of that on, despite it being so fun. So I like that there's kind of a weaker version of that you could run for cheaper. And there's Lambert Star Map, which is currently one of the Xenomorph's best add-ons by most people's accounts. Their best add-on. And definitely if you're looking at like add-on rarity, definitely their best add-on. This now decreases the detection distance from the motion trackers by 8 meters. Like I said, we're going to talk about this later. There's that, yeah, they do have an add-on that makes the motion trackers just not track as much. So you can kind of get that simulation of a really short tear radius, kind of like a stealth killer tear radius, by running this add-on. And you could pair it with the motion tracker add-on to try and clear the motion trackers, get use out of your now base kit undetectable in crawler mode. Try to deny this and kind of try to go for a more stealth playstyle. I still think that a stealth playstyle would be difficult with the motion trackers, even with these add-ons both run at the same time, but it would be better than nothing. It would be an improvement over the current Xenomorph, so that'd be something we'd have to play around with. Okay, next up we got Molted Skin, which right now is one of the Xenomorph's worst add-ons right now. It still keeps its identity as an exhausted status effect add-on, but now applies to survivors with facehuggers attached to them, and it lingers for 7 seconds once they are removed. Once again, it might still not be that great of an add-on, even in this version, because I'm not seeing what the benefit right now would be for survivors to run around with the facehugger on, considering they're incapped. It's not like with twins where running around with Victor denies her the access to her power for a little bit, which is not the case here. So there's no reason for them to not immediately try to get it off. So unless I'm missing something, once again, like I don't see why survive, like unless you're interrupting and finding survivors with it on and then chasing them, like yeah, which realistically you probably should be doing either way, right? Like you should be finding people and interrupting their face hugs, but it would have to be like for that specific play style, because otherwise if you like you go into a control station, you face hug somebody far away, and you end up having to like go find a death survivor or pressure a gen that's nearly done, then that person just gets to remove it in safety and you don't get value out of this. So it's something you would have to like definitely shift your playstyle with, which I am noticing is kind of like a add-on design philosophy that Smug has, which is really smart, is that like none of these add-ons are not none of them, but a lot of these add-ons are not like good universally. They're like, hey, if you play like this will help you, but if you play like this, it's not. And having that kind of diversity of like character or player expression in the character is cool. It may not be for everybody, but it's cool, because like you can try to stealth Xenomorph, you could try to do mostly gestation stage Xenomorph, or you could try to play him like old Xenomorph where you're mostly focusing on chasing people down. So I liked that a lot, because a lot of add-ons in modern DBD are just like number go up, number better, and it's not really that interesting. So I like that diversity. Army Hard Hat, broken status effect lingers for an additional 30 seconds upon a facehugger being removed from an injured survivor. Once again, broken status effect being applied at first destination stage period. Really good. that is really good. But then again, like I was saying, and I've been saying throughout this, is like it doesn't seem like you'd be really encouraged to keep the facehugger on for very long. So this would be great for people that know that, like this is a counterplay. Like people know the counterplay of just like get rid of the facehugger because there's no reason to keep it on. Like you would still keep the broken for a little bit. So that would definitely help with that. Wooden Recorder. I like that this is a Covenant reference add-on. I like how you're covering most of the movies here. I've not been saying a lot with the other, my apologies, like this is an Aliens reference here, but like a lot of the lesser loved ones you're also covering, which I appreciate. This increases your amount of starting overmorph tokens by 2, which means you can do more facehugger shenanigans earlier, except better. Kane's Helmet, which used to be a really good add-on and still kind of is okay, but like they kind of mangled as a concept. this still does that. It's essentially just the same add-on. Like Mangled is never like a bad add-on choice, but it's just like as they continue to like try to, you know, slowly edge out anti-heal as a meta, like add-ons like this get like less and less helpful. And we have Silver Crucifix, which injuries from facehuggers inflict the mangled status effect for 70 seconds. So you actually have two options of inflicting mangled, one from the tail attack and one from the facehuggers, which again covers the same logic that I had just said, where it's like mangled as a status effect, never not helpful, but like definitely not as helpful as it used to be now that it's timed. You also gotta imagine as well that like your character naturally applies broken, so characters are already they're not gonna be I mean, I guess it's fine because it's like a double whammy, right? Like you're broken for a while, and then even if you get the facehugger off, then when you start healing, you're gonna be like mangled at the same time. That's brutal. That sucks. That sucks for them. So I would see myself using the bottom one over this one. Once again, going with prequel add-on references. Black Spore sample decrease the amount of gestation points per stage by 10 seconds. Sorry, this one for some reason it was raised weirdly to me. It's probably me, not you. But decreases the amount of gestation points per stage by 10 seconds. So if you remember, you can't re-face hug somebody for a whole minute after they've been face hugged the first time. So you can't do that like tunnel down pig thing. This lowers it to 50, I believe is what this is saying. So if you really like that face hug like play style, this will definitely be a firm add-on that you'll be running every time because it'll allow you to do it quicker. Cat Carrier, which is also one of Xenomorph's lesser add-ons because of the fact that the motion sensors are so effective. Let's see what this one does. So survivors with any level of gestation points are afflicted with the Oblivious status effect. Okay. So going with Oblivious over Undetectable for you, because obviously in crawler mode you were already undetectable, kind of redundant. Infected with Oblivious. So they still have the motion detectors. They still have the motion detectors. You are undetectable in crawler mode. You are also undetectable in the tunnels. You can break the motion trackers, but that's you know, you have to keep on that. I still think this kind of suffers a similar issue, more so with this kit than the other one. With Cat Carrier just granting undetectable when you lose your power, it's like cool, but like motion, the motion turrets are going to track me. With the motion sensors that you have, they're still going to track you through this, and now you have even more ways to apply undetectable to yourself. So I feel like this still is not that handy. Like hear me out. So like if you're going around the map in like you know, crawler mode, chasing, trying to get downs, and somebody with gestation points is oblivious, like you're already undetectable. They already don't know you're there. So now they just double don't know you're there, you know, or you're in the tunnels and they also double don't know you're there. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a little bit of overlap. Let's see. Engineer's Helmet, which is cool. It's a very, very, very cool add-on idea. Survivors in gestation stage 3 are hindered by an additional 10%, which I read that as like, oh my God, that's gonna be 17% hindered. That's crazy. But then I was like, wait, if you've hit gestation stage 3 at this point, you're just ignoring. You're just ignoring the alternative get rid of their power gameplay that you got to do. Like at that point, if you're consistently hitting stage 3 and getting this, like, come on. Come on, man. Also, I really like this add-on, Ripley 3. It's literally just one of the ruined Ripleys from Resurrection. Very cool add-on idea. Survivors not injured by removing a facehugger are exposed for 45 seconds. Cool idea. Usually reserved for an Eerie when something like this. But like, if they get a friend who remove it, they are exposed for 45 seconds. I would almost... It'd be really funny if this gave exposed to the person that ripped it off. I think that would be really funny. I think that would be really interesting. Like, oh, I tried to help you, but now I'm in trouble. Like, it's not a design or health idea. It's just like a wouldn't it be funny idea. Acidic Blood, one of the less helpful add-ons because of its redundancy. Acidic Blood right now is if you stun the Xenomorph after a certain time that they come out of the control station, it injures you or depoons you. But obviously, the tail attack is perfect for hitting over pallets anyway. So why not just hit him over the pallet? Removing a facehugger alone while injured will down the survivor once per trial. I like that you put this limiter on it. because I like you were coming at it with the idea of like kind of like a trapper perspective of like yeah, like I have an add-on that if you try to free yourself, then it's punishing you. But that works with Trapper because you're not a little victor morph running around that's really, really hard to dodge and really fast. So it makes more sense for Trapper's add-on to do that than yours. So I feel like once is enough. Maybe if you want to be like, you really want people using this add-on, maybe you can up it to 2. But like definitely I'm glad you put that limit on it. It's cool add-on design, cool idea, but I'm glad you limited it. And our last one, the iridescent vase, which is also a very, very cool reference, increases the time to remove a facehugger by 10 seconds when removing it alone, which would up it to up it to 22 seconds, right? It's 12 seconds. 22 seconds. You imagine being stuck doing that for 22 seconds? That's wild. That's a long time to be sitting there doing nothing. That would be wild. That would be wild. It would encourage that altruism gameplay, but that would be wild. Absolutely wild. Well, overall, that is the full concept. One of the things that I feel like very quickly that I feel like I would adjust is if we're trying to really make the victim morph here with the facehuggers, if they miss, maybe it'd be pertinent to be able to kick them. Because if the facehuggers are going to be fast and also pounce fast, I would at least hope there's punishment for missing them, because you don't want to end up in a situation where you're forcing the gestation point and you're forcing the face hug because of how punishing it is with incap and it being an injury state unless it's removed by a friend. So I would assume, since almost all of this shares its DNA with Victor, that you can also kick them, but if not, yeah, you should probably definitely have that. Overall, I think this design is, like I was talking about the add-on designer, I feel like it's really, really good because it gives so many different play styles. You could still do mostly chase Xenomorph with the crawler mode adjustments, switching back and forth between normal mode, standing mode, normal and standing mode, and trying to vault over pallets and windows faster and do all that stuff. You can still play Chaseomorph. Or you can mostly focus on kind of like a Sadako pig kind of play style with the face huggers. You can try to do kind of a stealth play style with the add-ons and the tunnels. So there's like a little bit of something for everybody here, but I've also noticed that like the way you've balanced it is like, I don't know, I just think it's neat that like there's a little bit of everything here and you can kind of lean into whatever part of the kit you enjoy. Because I feel like despite the fact that, like, for example, Dracula is like a really cool killer design, the fact that he has 3 forms, it does feel like if you are even slightly not okay at any of the forms, like it's going to be a bad time for you, you know, because that's where you lose a lot of efficiency and then you have a bad time. Here it feels kind of like the opposite, where it's like, I don't know, play whatever form you want. You want to overmorph? You want to be the face hugger guy? Like, have fun. If you want to just do crawler mode chase, you know, have fun. You know, like just play whatever you enjoy. And I like that freedom, and I like that the add-on design, in addition to that, really encourages you to like, hey, if you really do like one of the forms more than the others, just run the right add-ons to make that one mode stronger. Just run Dog Cadaver and Charred Flesh and just do Vaulties, you know, just do chase, you know, have fun. Or you could run the Overmorph stuff and be the Overmorph Xenomorph. It's like, you can do whatever you want. Like I said, minor stuff, just in terms of like things I would improve personally as somebody that has spent a long time on this character. With the Facehugger mode, let's make sure we're not making this like old condemned Sadako, you know, the original old condemned Sadako, where like they were slugging people out the entire game just to get the condemns. Let's make sure that's not a thing. Because I definitely see some wiggle room to potentially do that. There seems to be enough failsafes, like the you can't get more gestation points for a full minute, and that sort of thing, but it's something to be worried about. I mean, like, other than that, seems mostly fine. I will say, this would be an objective buff to the character, and this character is already like high B, low A. They would move up. I don't think they'd be top 5. But they would move up. This is an objective buff to the character. But I do think this is also a more fair and healthy and fun version of the character. So it may not be as felt negatively by the survivor community if it feels more immersive. It feels like I can actually do something against the tail attack, and it feels more like the side objective is actually interesting and encourages altruism. You know, like there's more to do for both sides, so I don't think they would hate it that much, if that makes sense. Yeah, like I said, this concept is amazing. All credit goes to Smug, which you can once again find over at s_mug_. Keep in mind as well that Smug gave credit to Pixelbush for Apex of Biology, their original concept for this, and took a lot of inspiration from that. So it's kind of like a dual concept. So make sure to thank them as well. And if you are watching this Behavior Interactive, I know that from unofficial sources that you guys are already internally happy with the Xenomorph, but in my long time kind of being the guy about this character, that both survivors and killers don't enjoy the Xenomorph for a lot of reasons. And this concept, I feel like, does edge out most of those complaints about the character. So if you really want people to really love the Xenomorph and play the Xenomorph and play against the Xenomorph and have a good time, this concept is near perfect with just small adjustments. So yeah, what do you guys think of this Xenomorph rework? Do you think it's great? What ways would you improve it? What things are you scared of? What things are you excited about if this came to the game? Let me know down in the comments below, but that's gonna be it for today's video, friends. But I will see you in the next one. But if I do not, I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.